You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. I am your Godzilla of the truth. Hey, thanks for being with us today. Coming to you live from your nation's capital in Washington, D.C. No gibberish and no nonsense here. This is our Disruptor segment. And wow, do we have a disruptor for you today. In Chicago, 3rd District. Will I say his name right? Mike Fricilone. Mike, tell me how we say your name.
Actually, Fricilone, as usually I say it with a Z, Ken a Z.
All right, Fricilone. I was actually very close.
You were close. Yeah.
I was very close.
Yeah.
I just I got the pronunciation of it from Kiara, but it was still a little unclear. So, Mike Fricilone, you're running in the 3rd. You just announced your candidacy the other day. You're running for Congress in the 3rd District in Illinois. That's outside the suburbs of Chicago. But you don't really know who your opponent is going to be because the incumbent is Representative Dan Lipinski. Now, here's what's interesting about Lipinski, right? He is a moderate, right? He's probably out of step right now with his party. He's the only Democrat that I know of that's elected at a federal level that is a pro-life Democrat. He's come under fire for that.
Right.
But Lipinski, not a bad guy, right? In a normal situation, I think that district is D plus 3 or 4. I mean, it's slightly Dem. However, Lipinski's got like several left-wing social justice Democrats running against him. He is not a shoo-in to win a primary there. So he might not even be the nominee. He might get knocked off by one of the whack jobs, the social justice crackpots that are running against him. And this is also the district where last time on the Republican ballot, there was no other candidate except, what was that crazy guy's name that ran
Arthur Jones. Arthur Jones, the Nazi.
Arthur Jones, right, the guy that ran 19 times and finally got the nomination because nobody else ran, and he embarrassed the party, and he was a total disaster. So you're running. I would have to think part of it is to stop him so he doesn't get the nomination again. Obviously, you're an elected official. You're a supervisor in what? Homer Glen?
Will County.
Will County. You live in Homer Glen. And you definitely don't want – you guys don't want the Nazi Holocaust denier whack job to be your nominee again. Now, tell me about your race, any other Republicans looking at it, and how do you win the nomination?
Well, we hear right now that the Nazi, the Holocaust denier, Arthur Jones, is out getting signatures again. So very potentially he's going to run again. And I don't think we have anybody else on the Republican side, and that's been the problem. We haven't had a credible candidate in years. We really haven't had a challenge. And as you said, on the Republican side, if we have the Nazi running, we could, on the other side, have a progressive socialist running. So, it puts me in the right place to be a real voice of the people and not be, crazy extreme like either of these other people.
All right, the Chicago Sun-Times says that as Democratic-leaning as the district is, it says that if Lipinski is not the nominee and the Republicans have a reasonable candidate, it could put it in play. That would be Mike Fricilone, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. That's why I hope to turn the House for the president.
And the district, so that everybody knows, it's like South Side Chicago, Southwest Chicago, and also some of the Western Chicago suburbs. So it's kind of like it's kind of like White Sox country out to the suburbs. If you follow baseball, is where the White Sox are. So now, tell me about your campaign. Why are you running, and why do you think you're going to be able to win?
Well, again, a lot of it was the reasons we just talked about. We need a credible candidate for a change. I enjoy my time on the Will County Board. I've been on there for 7 years, and we've done a lot of good things. But I couldn't let this seat go unchallenged. I mean, number one, the Lipinski family, no matter what his views are, they've controlled the seat like a king and prince. If you might remember, Bill Lipinski held the seat for 20 years, And when he decided to retire, he resigned, and they appointed his son, who at the time lived in Kentucky, moved up here, and now he's held a seat with the same name for the last 15 years. And number one, we need change. So that's number one. But I do believe in this election that Dan's going to get beat by the progressive. And we have to stop this progressive socialist movement. I mean, you watch the Democratic debates last night, and you see they're promising everything under the sun. Mm-hmm. This is like a high school election where you promise that Coca-Cola is going to come out of the fountains. I mean, it's ridiculous. Nobody has a plan on how any of this free stuff happens. And my dad was a tool and die maker, went to work every day in the factory, and he always told me nothing in life is free. But you can't tell that from the Democratic side. So how do I win this election? Number one, I do think that the people that live in this district, they're hardworking people. Everybody would like to get a raise in their job, but the main thing is they want to keep the money that they make in their pocket. And I think that's what we have to do at the national level and the president's has already worked on that. Let people keep more of what they make. Let them make their own decisions instead of you deciding that you're going to take more of their money and decide how to spend it.
Well, look, I think you're right because when you look at the fundraising numbers, Lipinski, the moderate Democrat, was outraised by two of his Democratic primary challengers. I guess this is Marie Newman and Rush Darwish.
Yeah.
According to the Federal Commission reports out yesterday, I just saw them. He's got more cash on hand, but that's not going to last because he's not raising any money anywhere to the extent that they are. One of these is likely going to win. Now, how does the primary there work? Is it one-shot deal, or do you have to go to a runoff?
No, one-shot deal.
One-shot deal. So the only
Yep.
the hope that he has is if the two progressives split the vote and he walks in with 29%, basically.
Yeah, and there's some talk that there may be some plants in there to do just exactly that,
right.
Kind of the Chicago way in politics.
Right.
But it looks like Marie Newman is the one that has the backing of the real progressives. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC have all endorsed her. She was the first congressional candidate that they all three endorsed. So they're pushing hard. They're flying people in from New York to go out and work for her. I mean, they're pushing that dynamic really hard. Because they only lost by a couple thousand votes last time to the end of the primary a year and a half ago. So,
right. Well, what's interesting is the whack job Jones, anti-Semite, Holocaust denier, Nazi, crazy man, got 26% of the vote. You know, I saw that and I'm like, how could you get 26% of the vote?
Well, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of uninformed voters, and there are a lot of people that just believe that Republicans are 100% right, so they vote Republican down the line. I mean, that's one of the things that disturbed me in the last election is my partner and I that were running for the county board were sending out our precinct letters and saying, vote for us, don't vote for the Nazi. You know, that doesn't make us look good. It doesn't help the rest of the ticket, which is another reason that I thought I would run. At least I can help the ticket, if nothing else.
Right, because you guys are running below his name, and so it's embarrassing for the party, so you really need to stop that, and I commend you for getting in. Mike Fricilone, running for Congress. He's a Republican. He's a disruptor. He's in the 3rd District in Illinois. That's southwest Chicago, southwest suburbs, White Sox country, not Cubs country. That's the other side of town. There's a White Sox country, and White Sox, they're going to have a much better team next season it meets the eye. Always got to throw a little baseball in there. Mike, that's what we do here in the John Fredericks Show. By the way, I'm an Astro fan. Astros in 6. Mike, tell me, if you were in Congress right now, and I'm in Washington, D.C., if you were up here, everybody's running around with their hair on fire over the fact that we pulled out of Syria. I've never seen anything like it. Cats and dogs, rats and mice, Republicans and Democrats, neocons, warmongers, liberals, all coming together, blasting Trump for taking our troops out of Syria and so-called, quote-unquote, abandoning the Kurds, even though nobody can tell me in this town what exactly the objective would be. Do we stay there? What the end game is, all they know is Trump bad, and I guess they want regime change. I don't know what they want, but everybody's together that this is a horrible thing. If you were in Congress, how would you be reacting to this right now?
Well, number one, like you said, everybody's up in arms about the troops that we're pulling out of there. We act like we're taking millions of troops out of there. There's 1,000 of our troops out there. It's not some massive army of 15 platoons and stuff. It's 1,000 people. And I mean, at some point, we've got to protect our own people and stop putting them in harm's way. If these two countries, Syria and Turkey, can't get together, if they're just going to keep warring on each other, at some point, and I think the president made that right move, he said, okay, we've got to move. We've got to move out. And I think it's unfortunate that the Kurds are going to be in harm's way, but this is going to have to be negotiated down at a table. I know Vice President Pence is trying to do that right now, to sit down and get a ceasefire. But we can't leave troops all over the world in harm's way, and especially the small amount of troops that we had there to begin with.
If you're the Republican nominee, whether you're running against Lipinski or the other candidate, Marie, whatever.
Newman, yeah.
What's her name? Newman, right. Whether it's you or Renee Lipinski or Newman, let me just ask you something. What are they going to run out? Like, what are they going to bring back to the voters? Like, what have they done? Okay, they've done impeachment. They've done Russian collusion. They've done more impeachment. They've done Ukraine letter. What are they going to bring back to the voters, like in their form of accomplishment?
Yeah, that's my question. When are they going to do something? I mean, it seems like everything they're doing is for theater. It's all about rallying their troops so they can do their fundraising. But I don't see them getting anything done. They have the House, push some legislation, some real legislation, and get something done. But I guess right now, theater is what draws a lot of people into watching. But most of the people in this district, they're tired of it. They don't want to see anymore, and honestly, from both sides. But they're tired of seeing this. They just want their legislators to get there, get things done, and they'll read about it after it's done. They don't want to see on the news every night everybody yelling at each other and making up false stories, and one side, especially the Democrats, going after the president on any little thing they can find. I don't know about you, John, but have you heard anything about the Mueller report lately?
Nope, not a word. Nope.
Not one word, not a single word. As soon as that thing was done, let's find something else to attack on, because that one didn't work. I mean, the people are starting to see that this is just a concerted effort to basically stop the president from draining the swamp. I heard Vice President Biden yesterday talking about his son Hunter really was on the up and up. There was nothing involved in there. But in the interview that Hunter Biden did for ABC, if you got a chance to read the whole thing, he made one statement that cleared it all up for me. They asked him, would you have received this position if your last name wasn't Biden? And he said, probably not. I mean, forget the rest of the interview. He just told you right there, the only reason he got this job was because he was a Biden, but then they're going to say there's nothing going on there. This is the kind of stuff that has to stop.
Well,
in all government.
Hopefully you'll be able to stop it. If you get the Congress, Mike Fricilone, what are your top three priorities?
I know this is a tough one, but and I don't know if it's one or three, but term limits is certainly one, though.
I
think a lot of the stuff that's happening. I know it's never going to happen. But I have to continue that fight. I mean, we've got to get the healthcare system figured out. It's still a mess. I'm not sure exactly what the total answer is, but we got to sit down at the table and start figuring out how we fix this system. Certainly, securing the border is big for me. When people talk negatively about all these immigrants, we have 1 million immigrants coming into the country a year, legally. Our country has more immigrants than any other country in the world. We welcome immigrants, but you just have to do it legally. So let's close the borders to the illegals so we don't have to waste our time on that and put our efforts in to processing the legal immigrants that are coming here. And
Mike,
then,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the one thing that we should be doing right now is making sure that the upcoming election is clean and that we don't have any interference. I mean,
Right.
I don't see the Democrats saying anything about that right now. They're too busy just trying to attack the president.
You live in the south side of in the suburbs, just outside of Chicago. You get up every day, every single week. It's like Murder Town, USA. If you were in Congress, could you do anything in Chicago? What would be how would you solve that?
Well, I think number one, fortunately, in the 3rd district, that part of Chicago is probably has the least amount of crime. But as far as the city of Chicago, they definitely need to start putting these guys away. I mean, I really think, and I'm certainly pro Second Amendment, but we do have to take guns away. We have to take away from the criminals. We catch these guys with guns and they're on the street in the next 2 days. We have to start creating laws to put them in and keep them in and make a gun offense a real offense instead of just a slap on the wrist. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing because that's the only way to get the guns off the street is to get the guys that are getting these illegal guns and get them off the street.
So basically, you would tighten up what? What would you tighten?
I'd like to see the law become a little more lengthy jail stay for anybody that's caught with an illegal gun. It's a gun that's not registered.
Right, and make that known. So if you've got an illegal gun and you're arrested, you're going to do time.
Yes.
So basically, that would be how you would get those off the street.
I think that would take the group out. It would make people have a second thought about having an illegal gun at that point. Right now, there's really no penalty. Get a slap on the wrist or back on the street.
All right, Mike, I got to roll. People want to
Thanks, John.
people want to get in touch with your campaign. I know you just announced. Where do they go?
Friciloneforcongress.com. That's FRICILONE for Congress, all one word, .com.
Friciloneforcongress.com. I'm glad you're running so that crazy guy doesn't get the nomination again. And we'll see what happens on the Democratic side. I think if Lipinski gets beat by Newman, this thing's going to be wide open, Mike.
I think so too, John. So hopefully we'll talk again.
I could see up here in Washington, Eastern Market, right by the National
great.
Stadium.
Yeah, right. Yeah, go celebrate today.
All right, Mike Fricilone, baby, running south side of Chicago. Go to FriciloneforCongress.com. I love what you're doing, but thank you, Mike.